Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla, and I'm welcoming back ya to another episode of Car Rides with Schla, and we have a bit of a different spin on things today, believe it or not. Um, we kind of had more of a fun day today, and I say that because I had some old people I knew on Discord recontact me, and we're in this server together, and so it's a good amount of like socializing and good social experience, and it was fun. It's a nice surprise because that hasn't really happened before, and like basically, yeah, it was just I don't know. Um, I, but of course, it couldn't be had without a little bit of drama at the end of the day, which is of course, like, I don't know. And of course, I have things to say about it. Of course, I think I actually had a different topic planned for this episode, but this is like so fresh in my mind now that it's like I have to talk about this. So basically, what you have is this guy from the old server from years ago. He's continued to use Discord, but just has talked to other people. And randomly, somebody had reached out to him asking from this old server from a few years ago, asking about me, and they joined his server, and then they were interested in having me join the server, so then I joined the server, right? And then and then that same person that wanted me in the server, they started reaching out to some of the other people that we had known around the time. So see, it's becoming this kind of like big reminiscing thing. It's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And I start saying a bunch of things that are like half jokes. I feel like when I make a joke or I'm being serious, it's never really either or. Like a lot of times it's like, I mean, yeah, there's some seriousness to the thing I'm joking about, but I'm not like dead serious about it. And I think that is what is puzzling to people. I think it's very difficult for people to track that and to really interpret that and understand it because a lot of people like if something is clearly a joke and it's clearly nonsensical and there's not any essence of nonfiction to it. But for me, it's like there has to be some degree of nonfiction for a joke to be really good. It's almost like realistic fiction versus fiction. And I've talked about how, for me, outright fiction that is based on nothing, that is baseless, loses a lot of value to me and in my opinion because it's like it's there you're not being intelligent. You're like creating a story and it isn't really based on anything. There's no deeper meaning. And for some people that suffices, and I guess you could argue it is an opinion thing, but for the most part it's usually just frustrating. Like I don't know. But anyway, so my humor, I start talking about things along the tune of, let's make a role for all the old people, all these people from a few years back. Let's have some special role for us. And then, one of my other ideas was like let's have let's have channel, a special channel for people that associated with that role. So it was like an exclusive channel. And it's like, hey, I mean, the truth is these are realistic ideas. They can be implemented. But am I like, I don't know, would I be upset if they didn't? No, I'd be kind of like, oh, well, like, I came up with this really cool, fun idea, and then, like, it's not going to happen because certain people are upset. But I'm not like a forceful person. I'm not some guy who's like, all angry and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I understand a server, it's a social outlet, and it's a town square. It's not like any person really has a clear say over what goes on, But I think it's intimidating to people because of the way I'm able to articulate things, the speed, and often the topics. Like I think it really strikes them hard because a lot of people don't do that kind of thing. Like I don't think a lot of people who do schemes, they might not really think of it as fast. So yeah, the whole point is apparently like all these people got super upset about my like suggestion and the things I was saying. And of course, like when that was made, the issue was made brought to my attention, of course, like I'm fine with apologizing. I don't I never intended for anybody to be hurt or for anybody's feelings to be hurt. I mean, I had an idea. I thought I'd float it. It's kind of funny. It's not like some dead serious thing. Like I'm not expecting the owner to just go ahead and do it. Like if people didn't want it done, then that's fine. Like I don't know. I wasn't, and so I'm laughing about it, but I am, and I do care. I do care about people's feelings, and I care about when people are upset. But I think people who don't know me, they don't know that. They don't understand that, right? And so they're seeing this guy barrel through. This guy's funny. He's charismatic. He talks a lot. He types very fast. He's already like outflanking everybody else in terms of probably words sent in a day. And I think that triggers some kind of a defense mechanism in people. I think people expect, even if it's on a subconscious level, they expect that there is going to be a slower a slower transition if a new friend is coming into the group. And I know this because I've felt the same. Well, I say I felt because I don't think I'm as defensive anymore. Like I've really become much more of a laid back person the older I've got, but that doesn't mean there's that doesn't mean I can't understand where people are coming from. Like I've had an open mind about all this kind of stuff, and it's chill. Like I get it. I get kind of where people are coming from, and that's why I have a feeling I'm going to be able to articulate it in the way I am, because a lot of times, like when I'm in a server and these new people come along, I don't really like it. Like I don't really need new people in the server, like it's like the friends I already had were fine. I'm not like hungry for a bunch of new people to join, and I'm kind of like, no, like, and I have a feeling that that's how they felt. They felt like, again, I came into the server, random dude, they barely know who I am, and I'm being pretty explosive. Like I said, talking a lot, charismatic, funny, making jokes and inroads with people, and then like maybe people perceive it as I'm being like selective, because I do like to hype people up. I love to, you know, hype people up. Like it's always something I like to make people feel good. But I think the way I say things, it's in an individualistic way. So if I've only gotten to 5 people, if only 5 people have really gotten to know me, then yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be some people who feel left out because it's like maybe they're more shy, and I might be trying to get to know them, but in one case, it's like I send someone a friend request and they have friend requests turned off, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I think certain people are shy and they want to be socialized with. I think other people are shy and they don't really want to be socialized with. They kind of want to be left alone, and they may not really like me being in the server. If that makes any sense, because again, it's kind of about this idea of control. It's this idea of like, people who have been there for a while, they want to feel like they're cool and that they're funny. And when somebody comes in and they're pushing it so much, and it's so rapid, right? Like, I mean, I just came in out of nowhere and I'm already like at this level in this degree. You know what I mean? And so I think it's a defense mechanism. It's like these people are fine with starting some beef. Because it wasn't really with me, it was mainly with another person who was part of the old group. And that person ended up leaving because they really got in a heated debate, which of course I was like, you know, cringing at or like sad about when it was going down, because that's not, it's not what I want. It's not what I want to see. Um so yeah, like it's upsetting when I see the drama like that, cuz it's like I'm always thinking like I'm trying to keep the peace and I really like the one person on the side of the argument and I kind of wish they would chill, but then maybe they're really upset, and that's valid too, cuz and it's like both sides are upset, and how you can't, there's a lot of situations you can't validate both sides, and it gets messy, it gets sloppy, and it's like I really wish everybody could get along, but I do think that in certain circumstances it's just people don't really have the patience. Like, I have to remember, I'm obviously retelling and giving this detailed analysis. And again, I'm being cognizant the whole time. I mean, if somebody says that something I did was upsetting to them, like of course I'm going to apologize. Now, I can disagree with the merits, but I can still apologize from a emotional standpoint. Like, I don't want to hurt people, but I still think I should be allowed to disagree from a rational standpoint, where it's like, in my opinion, ideas shouldn't really be able to hurt a person in the same way as actions can. If I, and again, that is even a debate in and of itself. So that's why, like, I wouldn't even argue with the people about it, because I know that there's a thin line with those things, because again, you can make the argument that in some cases there isn't enough restriction on toxic ideas. I mean, we talk about it on this show a lot, how it's like bad ideas can lead to, and often do lead to, bad action. Or in this case, it would be like subjective bad action. But the whole point is, what my analysis is of it is that people, they like to be defensive, and they want to defend the group that they have. And if somebody new comes along and they're really hitting it off with people, but like they haven't been got to yet, because hey, let's say that they sleep or something, they're asleep when the person's talking, or et cetera, et cetera. It could be all these different reasons, right? that that's pretty much like it, and they would have no problem with getting offended about being unincluded, because that is a huge thing for people nowadays. I mean, nowadays more than ever, people have the fear of missing out, and I used to be that way in a large way, in a very significant way. I had the fear of missing out. And I think things have changed a lot as I've gotten older. As I've kind of realized certain things, I've dealt with more social experiences, I realize that the fear of missing out, it's oftentimes like really illogical, you know. I mean, and also control. You just don't have control. You just don't. And you can't really do anything to maintain control, I feel, without it becoming immoral. I mean, I really do think that it's like you can't. How can you do it without things becoming immoral? And I know a lot of this stuff too stems from the fact that the internet, it changes the way we communicate. It makes things very meritocratic, where it's like, you know, you could have known like, let's say somebody was friends with someone for 5 years, but then instantly somebody new comes along that's like 10 times better. Yeah, like things can change fast, and there can be like a rapid upgrade or an improvement, and then there's going to be feelings hurt. These things didn't happen before. You know, for most of human time, when you're in a village and like you know everybody and that's it. There's no, you're not going to like meet somebody better. There's no other people having a fear about meeting somebody better, and none of that's even, there's no control. Like, you never really had the same degree of power dynamics. The power dynamics that existed were very stable. So I think admins and moderators, they they operate like this. They operate like this. And I think that it's all because of a lot of residual reinforced human behaviors. These are residual. You know, we still want, in a way, to go back to these primitive or slower social setups where the future in modernity is not really like that. I mean, sadly, people come and go, and I mean, this is something I've really had to come to terms with, that you can't, we just don't have control over it. And most of it's actually humans' fault. You know, that's kind of what's ironic about it, is that people behaving in the way, it's kind of like a cursed if you do, cursed if you don't. I don't want to say the actual, you know, because I like to keep my language pristine, but you know, it's like either way. I mean, if these admins or moderators didn't do anything about it, then they would have felt like they're getting walked over, you know, and vice versa. And so you have a lot of these disagreements and ego wars that go down, and that's kind of it, right? I mean, I don't know that there's much mitigation, but the whole point is a lot of it just comes from the fact that, like, a lot of these people, you can tell based on how they're typing in the chat. I mean, these are people who are exhausted, right? So not only, because to make the contrast, I'm not saying this to be egotistical, but just to make the contrast, it's like I'm someone where words obviously just come very easily to me. It's my main skill. I don't particularly feel like I have much else going for me, but in terms of like kind of word language processing, it is a very big skill of mine. It's very easy to understand how I feel, to take the time to sift through it. I mean, a lot of people, a lot of times, with how vulnerable, like, I'm really vulnerable and I'm posting the video publicly. Most people wouldn't do that. Like, they couldn't even if it wasn't posted. I think people, it would be very overwhelming for them just to have these types of dialogues. It would be hard for their attention. I mean, even if they didn't need to be vulnerable, just to have a continuous self thought for this long, let alone spoken in verbal words, right? Because like thoughts are a lot easier. Obviously, recently I have felt that way where it's like if I'm really down in the dumps, sometimes I have moments of silence during the car because like my thoughts take over. My thoughts are faster and oftentimes more efficient than what my mouth can do. You know, the mind is faster, it's more efficient. So what I'm saying is when I have a lot of these perspectives and interpretations, the truth is most people they don't see the world that way. They don't and they can't interpret the world that way. It's just not something that they're capable of. And I don't know that there's really anything wrong with that, but what I'm saying is these types of situations they would look extremely different if the median person was like me, right? Like just the whole way they would be handled. Because again, me personally, I've never blocked anybody, I've never removed anybody, and I've never left any servers. Like I've just never done that. And that it again, I think it mostly has to do with that kind of meta comprehension of people, right? And of course, some of my assumptions about this situation could be a little bit off. I'm not trying to, because I'm sure as I get older, my interpretations and my ability to understand and comprehend human psychology will hopefully increase a lot. Like if I look back 5 years ago, I knew nothing compared to now. So it in the same sense, like 5 years from now, maybe I'd look to where I'm at now, and I'd be like, yeah, I was kind of wrong there. A lot of people aren't even like that though, right? It's like a lot of people they probably have roughly the same opinions. I mean, there's a small amount of growth, but I think for the most part, there is minimal growth for most people. I do think, and there are plenty examples of people I know who are adults and they still have a fairly closed-minded view of things. I think for me in particular, it's been the past year or two, my mind's opened up a lot. Just through the things I've experienced and the things I do. This show, recording, putting things in a transcript, pasting it in GPT, having GPT criticize me, voluntarily telling it to. It leads to an expansion. I mean, and again, these are behaviors that I think some people would just be really upset. They wouldn't be able to handle it. They would be sad. They would be they would be upset. They just wouldn't be able to handle it, right? I think some people it's just too much for them, and the human mind can be a lot, especially some people's minds where the thing that I'm usually told and people have told me is I can really put something into words. Like I can take a feeling and just say it in a way that really makes more comprehensive sense. Whereas like if another person has a certain feeling and they're trying to tell me how they're feeling, usually I can actually connect the dots and construct like a better way of articulating it. And then I'll be like, yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Is it this? And I say like a complete paragraph, whereas they might have only been able to come up with two sentences. See what I'm saying? And then the person will be like, yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. But your way of saying it is it's more eloquent. There's you right, and so that's like a skill, and I mean it's an important skill. I guess it's something I take for granted. But what I'm saying is people like if, for instance, the people involved in this situation, I mean they could hear what I'm talking about and go, I'm not egotistical, I'm not being defensive, because like to their conscious mind that's hurtful, even but I think it's a fairly objective um take on things because I'm trying to talk about like subconscious defense mechanisms, right? I mean, these aren't things that a person is even consciously aware of. So then I think that happens a lot too. When it's like, I'm right about something, but it's like something that's subconscious that maybe I can kind of tap into my subconscious a little bit, or at least be aware of like different subconscious human inclinations. But then another person might not. Another person might hear what I'm accusing them of and get upset. They might be upset and offended, you know? And that's okay. Like I don't know that I can't really do anything about that. It's just like it is what it is. And I think GPT's probably mentioned this before too. Really what we have to do is we have to start to figure out change. I mean, it's good that I'm very good at detecting problems and kind of like doing diagnosis and analysis, and it's very advanced. But what would really be more impressive is really coming up with a concrete solution that actually is feasible. I mean, that would be something that is really impressive, right? Not only being able to see the problem and complain about it, but like, well, what could we actually do? And then, what are the limits? Like, what are human limits? What are some people just never going to be able to change? Because, yeah, I mean, maybe I can have this advanced analysis of it about people need to be more humble and you're being too defensive over your ego and over your tribe. But if I say that to people, I don't think that's going to solve things. I think they're just going to get upset, defensive, and think that I'm wrong. Because that happens a lot too. Like, even if I'm right about something, it's like somebody just doesn't, they don't get it, but it sounds mean towards them. And so they're just going to say, okay, whatever, like, forget this guy, you know? And so that happens a lot too. So you have to think of a way to approach things, but I guess you also have to secede that certain people it's just not possible to like change. It's not possible to help. There is some kind of a limit. I don't know. It's like it's pretty tricky um, to figure out, but yeah, I'm just not really sure. It's complicated. It's just a complicated um, situation to figure out and deal with. That's how I feel. And there may not really be a solution. Like, that's kind of the sad thing. I mean, I really love to optimize and look for a solution, but this could just be like a pretty major human limitation. And it's like that's where I'm saying like we have to ask ourselves, how do you evolve? How do you build on these traits, and what do you do with people who are just not, I mean, what do you do with people, right? Because it's like there are a lot of people who think about these things and seek to comprehend them and care about solutions in the world. And then there's other people who they don't want to follow any rules at all. And they're just trying to break rules their whole life and just cause a bunch of ruckus and destruction. There's like all kinds of people. And it's like, well, what do you do? Because like it's not right to be like super stern, because it's like, well, people are how they are because of what they went through, and that's, it's not fair to like punish someone for maybe a behavior or trait that was out of their control. Like, what if that it wasn't in their control? um so I think there's a lot of like, there's just so many ways to look at it. And so when it really comes to like concocting a solution, it's incredibly difficult, right? Like, it's not easy. I don't know, is it possible, is like the main question. But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of people. There could be people in that server where they could hear this whole conversation and just say he's wrong. And like, even though like I'm right, they would just say I'm wrong. And that could be through a miscomprehension, or just seeing that it's not really in their best interest to admit that I'm right. There could be multiple reasons for that. Or people could watch it and admit that I'm right, but say they don't care. and you know, they still want to have their group and their friends, and they're going to gatekeep it as much as they can. So it's kind of ironic, because it's like the people who are not being the people who are against being territorial, um, or who are trying to snuff out a form of gatekeeping, are gatekeeping in and of it in themselves. Like they're trying to gatekeep what they have, because they don't want me to gatekeep what I have. Like, you see what I'm trying to say? That's the thing with a lot of these wars and ego battles, but I don't think they realize that that's like the truth, and that that's really how it can be spun or comprehended. I mean, that's all. It's true. It's true. It's an ego war either way. There's not necessarily a clear, like, you know, no, like, it's, I mean, it's rough and it's messy, and a lot of times, like, you can make the argument that peace requires war, right? Like, you look at, in a large scale, when you look at like America and really any other developed countries, they have pretty strong militaries, you know, to protect them. You don't just have peace. Like, if America got rid of all its weapons and had no military weapons at all, would we be would we have the same level of security? Absolutely not. So that's kind of a thing with the world, is it's like, you, at least the way things work now, it's like you have to have some kind of evil war in order to generate a pocket of peace, you know. And then you have, like, again, the first world countries, which I feel like I've talked to GPT about it before. It's really, because it's not even just first world countries, but then it's also like within first world countries, how there's certain pockets with private security and things that are like even safer. There's still trash areas in first world countries. And so there's this flaw that persists, that it's like, in order for there to be any peace on earth, it's like the top 20% maybe has to isolate themselves, you know? And then it's sad, because, like, it can't, at least there hasn't been a system yet where we can really make it fair. Because that's what, like, I asked GPT about it before, and it's like, if you count all the safe areas within first world countries, or like in some cases you have like Dubai, right? It's like kind of a third world country, but you have these extreme wealth pockets. I'm sure even in Russia, or in some crazy examples, maybe even Africa, like extreme India, there probably are tiny amounts of people who are like excessively wealthy and they're safe within those countries. But I'm saying, if you count everybody who's actually, whether it's a first world, second world, third world, like everybody who's genuinely safe, it is probably at most only 20% of the population. And the other 80%, you know, life's like pretty rough. There's not really much safety, much security, much civility, much organization. It's pretty bad, you know? And so it's kind of this conundrum where it's like, you have to have that in order for anybody to have peace. And it's like not fair. I get that it's not fair, it's not equal, but like, if we didn't have this inequality, then everybody would just be uncivil. Nobody would have peace. It's crazy. Anyways, it's been schla, but now it's time to buy schla. So, see ya, schla.